Hi, everybody. I have an amazing interview today with Vajra Ma. So Vajra Ma is an educator, she's an author, she's a priestess, and a visionary dedicated to empowering women through the reclamation of innate body wisdom and spiritual authority. As the creator of the Tantric dance of feminine power, she spent over 30 years guiding women in a powerful, self directed practice that awakens inner strength and intuitive wisdom. She's the author From a Hidden Stream, The Natural Spiritual Authority of Women, and she is published in 8 anthologies. And today we're going to talk about the newest upcoming anthology called Unleashing the Courageous Feminine 13 stories of strength, grace, and awakening through adversity on Amazon. And it's coming out on March 31st, but you can get a Kindle version for 99 cents from March 27th to the 29th. So get on it. It's so exciting. Vajra, you are so amazing and awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, it's my delight. It's my delight to talk with you, Joanna, and everything that you're doing in the world, to make this a better place, a better place. So happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. So I've spent a lot of time with you, and I know you're amazing. Well, I don't know all of your amazing superpowers, but you have so much. There's so much that you've done in the world over these years. Can you talk a little bit about like how you started on this journey of feminine empowerment, how you started um, just even getting interested in these feminine mysteries and the goddess and all of these different mysteries that a lot of us don't know about? How did you get started?
Sure. I moved in next door to someone who was teaching movement that had to do with connecting with your body and the female energy of the body. That springboarded me. And also I studied continuum, which is a not just female oriented, but a way of continuum is a worldwide known modality that connects you to the deep, subtle energies of your body. So for me, Joanna, it all started with the body.
Right.
And when I started getting into the body, I realized that the answers are there. The body never lies, So my whole work is based in embodied spirituality. And at the same time, I was given a book called The Great Cosmic Mother, which opened me up to the history, the real history of human spirituality, which was always based in female wisdom and in female guidance, the great cosmic mother. And women were always, before the last 6 to 10,000 years of male domination, people think, oh, it's always been like this. Men have always been in charge. There's always been war. No, there was 200,000 years history. This is archaeological history.
Right.
This is proven of a global veneration of a female deity, you might say, a creatrix, the great supreme being, whatever it is, God, source, whatever you want to call it, goddess, call it, that was understood to be embodied, especially in women, because we have the womb. We create life. We are actually a portal as women between spirit and flesh. We bring spirit into our body and we bring it out as flesh. And that's an incredible mystery. It's awesome. Any kind of, a birth, you see it in nature. You see that, the replication every spring or rebirth. So all of this was really embodied in a particular way in the female body because of the womb.
Right.
And so, and that doesn't cut men out of the picture at all. It's a way of us coming together in reverence for life and the source of life.
Right.
And that in the human species and in most species, it's the female. All species, it's the female who gives birth. So that's a place of deep reverence and respect for source.
Right.
So when I started learning about the goddess, I started having, in the movement experiences I was having in continuum, I started having spontaneous experiences of particular goddesses I've been reading about. I could recognize when I was feeling something in my body, and it was like, or doing a certain sound. It's like, oh, that's Yamaya, or that's Saraswati. I could feel it. And so I started wanting to explore that, but there was no place to do it, where there was that movement, that subtle movement work with the goddess. So I started having circles myself, and that was back in the late 1980s. Been doing it ever since.
Right.
Yeah.
In so when you are in your body and you're working with these energies, is it awakening the part of you that is that, or do you feel like it's a different energy that comes in and gives you access to that energy?
That's a really good question. And I think it's not either or. Sometimes we get caught up in either or. I think it's both.
Right.
I mean, sometimes, yeah. I because ultimately in the tradition of the Divine Mother is taught in India. That's where the real, one of the main sources of this goddess knowledge is. It's understood that it's all within you. You are that, and yet also it is outside you, because we're human beings.
Right.
And we have our limitations. And so it's sometimes I feel like calling out to the mother, please. And other times it's like calling out to the mother within.
Right.
And you just live with that paradox,
Right.
So it's both. I mean, how do you experience it?
Yeah, it's funny doing this work for so long. It's true. Being a human is tricky. And I mean, when I'm confused or sad or lonely, I realize that it's only my disconnection from all that is that causes that. And so when I can clear everything out and everyone else out and just embody that and reconnect, it seems like everything gets better. And so it's funny. Way. I was 23, I think. I remember I was having some sort of really hard time, and I called to Isis. I'm like, okay, Isis, help me, because I was studying Isis at the time, I guess. And she didn't come. And I was like, does she not exist? Is she not real? Like, why didn't she come? And I was talking to a friend, and she's like, nah, she's like, your spirit, like you can channel spirit by like and heal spirit and like all of these things. And so everything's part of everything. So she's like, I don't know why she didn't come for you, but and I was like, oh well. And that is what got me thinking about, well, maybe we're like aspects of the whole, and we can tap in to any other being on the planet that we can imagine or think about and have access to that knowledge and wisdom. It's so we're all one, and then we're all like apparitions of the one.
Individuals.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's our paradox that we live. I don't know, maybe Isis did come to you in a way that you didn't recognize. I don't know. That's possible.
It's true. But it is, I guess that's why they call it the mysteries. There's never really like a stamp that's like, this is what is official, like this is really what happened.
And that's the thing, that's the sovereignty that we have. Our experience, because we're going to talk about female sovereignty with my chapter that I've got in this book, and our experience, we are sovereign. So our experience is valuable, every bit as valuable and real as somebody else's. For me, it's interesting you bring up Isis, because back in those late 80s, when I was just getting into the goddess understanding, I had an experience where I felt an entity, a being, some energy over here in my bedroom. I just gone to a dance thing, and I was come home, and I went, oh my God, that's Isis. I felt an umbilical cord in my mind's eye, in my sense, coming to me, and I knew it was Isis. How did I know it was Isis? It was Isis,
right?
And then I heard in my inner voice, because I had been a Mormon.
Mm-hmm.
I joined the Mormon church when I was 19, and by then I was around I don't know, 30 years old. And I heard a voice in my inner voice saying, from God the Father, what I recognized as God the Father from my prayers, he said, I'm turning you over to the goddess.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So that's another piece of how, how I found this path. So that was real to me. I'm turning you over to the goddess. I felt like I was being rebirthed by Isis through this umbilical cord.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a real thing there when we call out. And so it's both. Yeah, it's both. Yeah.
I love it. And what, how amazing. So interesting. So how did your ideology change from like having a God the Father leading you and guiding you to
Yeah.
now you're being guided by the goddess? Like how did that change your life?
Yeah, it was what I realized. Well, one of the main things, what first comes to mind is I realized that the self-loathing and the low self-esteem I had
Right.
was because of misogyny.
Mm,
I was 38 years old. I didn't even know what the word misogyny meant.
right.
I heard the word, but what was it? Well, the fear and hatred of women. The fear, once the male domination came in, then you have repression of women, then you're going to have a fear of women because it could explode, right? That's my theory. Men are going to be afraid that we're going to explode and take over and in revenge and blah blah blah. That's not how women are built. That's not how we're built. We're kind of innately wanting to cooperate, to enclose like you do with a womb. So and to include. So I recognized that my self-loathing and my low self-esteem wasn't just me. There wasn't something wrong with me. It wasn't just me. It was like I was embedded in a culture, in a society that kind of enforces that makes it happen. Women are less than. Women are dangerous. Women have been demonized in like the demonization of the serpent in the Garden of Eden. Okay, with the whole Judeo-Christian sort of basis that Eve caused all death to come, and it was Eve made the wrong choice in the Garden of Eden. And even though if we don't believe that per se, it's embedded in our culture and in all the Abrahamic cultures, the religions that stem out from that. And interestingly enough, when I did my reading, I would find things like the word for Eve and Yahweh, the God of the Old Testament, and the word for serpent were cognates of each other. They came from the same root. And teacher.
Oh.
Teacher, Yahweh, Eve, and serpent. They were all related. And so that serpent in the garden was really a teacher saying, right, you can eat of this fruit, and yet Yahweh forbids it. So we got split that way because really, Joanna, for centuries before, those 200,000 years, women had been imparting to men the knowledge that's inherent in woman as a creator of life. And we were creating egalitarian cultures where men and women cooperated, and everybody supported life and took care of the children and lived in harmony, in an intelligent harmony with nature. So the serpent, interesting enough, the serpent is the key to the practice that I teach. The embodied movement, the subtle body of the tantric dance of feminine power that we referenced in the bio, coming from the womb up through the solar plexus into the heart, into the third eye, this whole unification of the chakras of the body, the energy centers and intelligence centers of the body. When you undulate like a serpent, it is automatic. If you do it enough, that those, your whole endocrine system, all your chakras harmonize. And so the intelligence that's encoded in the body starts to activate. Wow. Your sovereignty as a human being. And for a woman, it's special because of the womb. I tell men to imagine you have a womb, but men are connected, through the divine mother. We're all embodiments of the great mother, right, the great mother. And so you undulate. Serpent is a key to knowledge. And that's why it was demonized in the Genesis, Judeo-Christian thing, because it was used as a way to justify oppressing and cutting women off from their innate knowledge, so that men could dominate.
Right.
And of course we know that men in patriarchy, it's men at the top, men below them. Men are suffering too, see, and then it's women, and then it's children, and then it's earth. This whole hierarchy. Nobody really wins,
right?
Ultimately. So,
boo.
Yeah. I forgot what the question was, but that's where I went.
Right.
So we could. It's been. We want to talk. If we could talk about the chapter, you were talking. How did I get interested? I was interested in the myth of Medea. Now, my chapter's entitled Medea, the Mother, and Me.
Right.
And the whole chapter deals with female sovereignty.
Right.
Sovereignty, but particularly female sovereignty, and the cutting off how women have been disempowered in patriarchy. Can you
explain the word sovereignty? What does sovereignty mean to you?
Yeah, sovereignty. It means, could look it up in the dictionary, but it means to be complete unto oneself. We talk about a king or a queen as being the sovereign. Well, that means they rule over you, but no, self-sovereignty means that you are your own authority.
Right.
You are sovereign, you are complete. There's no one over the top of you.
Right.
It's within. You're self-sovereign. So you govern yourself from inside out. Yeah. So that would be sovereignty. And so female sovereignty would be that each woman recognizes that she doesn't need to be subjected to male control, right? And it's the same for a man. He doesn't have to be subjected to anybody else's control, male or female, right? Or some kind of sovereign over them, We are self-sovereign. But it's particularly meaningful for women because we have been taught to subject ourselves to male, to the male, the nuclear family, the man's the head of the household, and men are running things and all of that. Regardless of how much liberation we've created, so far, we're still living in a system that is pillaging the earth, greed, corporations, controlling the masses, and controlling women's reproductive powers. It's based on that. Right. We don't want to get off too far on that tangent, but for a female sovereignty means that we make the decisions about our body.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in that sovereignty, when you come, because you were in an amazing relationship for very many years with the love of your life. As a sovereign woman, what did that look like in partnership and in relationship, so people know what that looks like in a healthy relationship?
Yeah, what a beautiful question. Wolfgang, we were together 20 years. He passed away almost 4 years ago now. He passed away in June 2021. It's interesting. He called me the boss once in a while. You're the boss. And I said, oh, okay. He looked to me for spiritual leadership, and I looked to him for his all the gifts that he had. We looked to each other equally to guide each other, really. But he always recognized that woman is the answer. He'd always been like that. And he revered women, revered the goddess, and was totally manly. I mean, he was an innovator, he was an artist, he built things all the time for us here on the land. And so there was a mutual respect,
right?
And we made decisions together. But ultimately, we never formalized it, but if I said, I don't really like this car, he would get a different one. I didn't like the Peugeot because it was so noisy and it was diesel powered, all of a sudden he gets rid of it, and I'm like, oh, wow. Because he was always trying to serve me and serve us. And to me, that's a real man.
Yeah. Yeah.
A real man. So yeah, equal partnership, but woman has a little bit of the edge. That's all, you know.
Yeah. And you were serving the partnership with your wisdom and knowledge as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. He looked to me for that. He respected that. And he totally supported my work.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the one man, you know, Joanna is the one man where I would have him, my tantric dance classes were women only.
Mm-hmm.
But and some of the rituals were women only, but I could have him there.
Right.
And women felt like it was just another woman
Mm-hmm.
because he was not effeminate at all, because he had no ogling, like, ooh, you know, none of this. He was totally in his, what we call his Shakti.
Right.
That, you know, Shakti is the life force, that you know, the creative life force of the universe, and it's female. It's identified as being female,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And he was totally in his Shakti with reverence and respect.
Right.
And it was really wonderful to be able to have him in classes, and women felt comfortable.
Right. Safe.
To be comfortable. Safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Safe.
Because they knew
Yeah.
he honored and respected them and wasn't going to take anything from them or.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No Shakti sucks going on. Sucking Shakti.
Oh man. That's
Oh, we know that one. You know, yeah. Yeah. So yeah.
So when you thank you so much for that, because yeah, I just wanted to honor that relationship because yeah, it's so sweet, so special, so sacred. So sacred.
And you know, thank you so much. And you know what?
Hmm.
The love continues through the veil.
Oh yeah.
Through the veil.
How's he
He's
doing?
with me.
Right. How's he doing?
he's doing great.
Right.
Yeah. He doesn't have to pay rent. He doesn't
Right.
have to do laundry.
I hear you.
What can I say? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's so great.
That's a whole other thing. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Thinning the veil and communicating through the veil. Yeah. It's beautiful.
That's so fun. Yeah, that should be another podcast for sure.
Another podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So excited about your chapter. And also, did you publish your play as a book, or is it was just a play and you're talking about it?
Just a play. It was just a play. I started gathering information and ruminating on Medea, the myth of Medea, in the late 70s. And then by 1995, I put my feminist revisioning of the myth in the form of a play and performed it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So at the time, it was a one-woman show. I rewrote it in 2017 to include a chorus of 3 women that she communicates with, modern day women who are having a dream, blah, blah, blah. It's in a dreamscape. So anyway, the thing about Medea is that she, for me, is the epitome of woman trapped in patriarchy. Mm. Conditioned by patriarchy. Okay, so the myth of Medea, people kind of have heard about her. They know her as she's the woman who murdered her children. We'll get into what this chapter was about. She murdered her children. Okay, I should give a little quickie about the myth of Medea to make sense with what I've got in my chapter and how that relates to female sovereignty, you know, and that it brought up a taboo in me that was like, well, let me put it this way. 2 weeks before I was to perform the show in 1995, I was laying flat on my back. I didn't have a finished script. Mm. I was very impulsive. I'd already gotten the venue and the director and the musicians, you know, and I was working on the script. I didn't have a full script yet. And I was literally laying on my back going, I felt like the ocean was, I was at the bottom of the ocean and I couldn't move. I thought, okay, I've got to take 3 days and just finish the script and do nothing else. Right. Well, what was happening? I was facing a taboo inside of me that I didn't even know I had. It was so deep. And now this will sound really weird, but I thought that if I finished the play and I performed it, that it would kill my mother.
Interesting.
Yeah. It was irrational. My mother was very supportive of me, and
Mm-hmm.
she didn't get to see the show. She was in Oregon and I was down in California. Um, but it felt real to me. This will kill her. Well, why would it kill her? I couldn't figure it out. And so I didn't understand why. And of course it relates to everything that was in the play of Medea also. Because okay, try to make this simple. I felt, well, let's just put it in my own terms. If I surpassed my mother,
Mm-hmm.
my mother was like a peacemaker. And, I said to my mom one day, why did you never talk back to dad when he said, oh, Doris, you don't know what you're talking about, and she said, well, honey, I just wanted to keep the peace.
Right.
So the acquiescence, the things that my mother gave up in order to keep the peace, in order to be a mother in the terms you had to be back then, and kind of truncating her own life in certain ways. If I surpassed her, I thought, I finally figured it out, that would be like, if I was all I could be, then it would make her, it would be too much for her to bear, to face what she had given up. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Because you don't want to make her
Yeah.
feel bad. You don't want to make her feel bad that like you are living this amazing, wonderful,
Yeah.
successful life and
Yeah.
she was just, I don't know. Because
Yeah.
being just a wife or just a mom, like that's uh, it's a big deal being just a wife and just
It's a very,
yeah.
well, that's the greatest work on earth,
Right.
really. But I could see that she gave up certain things, so and so it was irrational on my part to think that it would kill her, but it felt real. And so what I decided to do was do it anyway.
Right.
And this all goes back to the myth of Medea. Medea, she gave up, she betrayed her own country for love of Jason of the Argonauts when he came to get the golden fleece, which was a magical, powerful thing for her country's homeland. She fell in love with him. She kept him from being killed. She saved his life many times. She helped him take the golden fleece, and she married him, went back to Greece with him. She gave up her power to a man.
Mm-hmm.
She was complicit in his heroic, stealing from her own country.
Right.
She was complicit. And so in the same way, my mother was complicit in kind of cutting herself down a bit, you see, as women are. I think we all, kind of like, well, we don't want to surpass the man, we don't want to, we don't make more money than him. We don't want to, we've got to, all of that giving away of our power, to be accepted by a man. I'm not putting this all in heterosexual terms, that the same dynamics could exist in any relationship, gay or lesbian too. So Medea was, and then in my play of Medea, she I have her retell her story so that she can discover her own missteps, her own mistakes. One being she betrayed her own country. She helped him steal the golden fleece, which was a symbol. It was a golden wool from a magical ram that had died, and it was divine protection and kingship. That's what it had, this magical power. And she helped him steal it and take it back to Greece. And then she bore him 2 sons, and then he dumped her for a younger woman.
Right.
Hey, does that sound familiar? Who just happened to be the daughter of the king in Greece.
Right.
So he was climbing the social ladder and he dumped her. Well, in the traditional myth, Medea then slays their 2 sons that she has borne him, and the myth presents it as revenge. Well, no. In my play, she's given the task of finding the deepest motive of her deed.
Right.
Okay. The deepest motive. So, and that'll get her out of the grief that she's feeling herself. Well, first of all, she slays them not out of revenge. She recognizes herself that she slays them to spare them from being murdered. Better they die at the hands of she who loves them than at the hands of those that hate them, because ultimately they would be obstacles to the inheritance. When if he had more children by someone else, they would, her children would be obstacles to the inheritance of kingship. You see, they would be rivals. They'd be murdered eventually.
Sure.
Right. That's how it goes. Yeah. So, but even that is not her deepest motive.
Right.
As she goes through my play, she recognizes certain things that she did and realizes her complicity in the heroes, Jason the hero, in his rampaging and his theft and his climbing the social ladder and his betrayals. You know, she recognizes that she's been complicit in supporting him. Right. In that. And what happens in my play is she gets a vision of what the hero does from her time up into our present time. And she sees a vision of genital mutilation, of foot binding, Chinese foot binding. She sees the witch burnings, women burned at the stake because they had herbal knowledge, right? Back in the burning times in Europe. And then she sees the ultimate, the nuclear bomb in Hiroshima. And she goes, well, this pales compared to any deeds that I have done. Right. And she realizes that she's supporting all of that by supporting the hero.
Right.
Supporting the male domination. And and in recognizing her own complicity, she then says, hero, I will no longer serve your wars. Nothing from me shall go forth into such a world. I will no longer give you life so that you can use it for, kill it. Right. So that's why she killed her children. That's the deepest motive. I will not bring life I will not give from my body and my life everything so that you can just destroy it. Right. So that's female sovereignty. Right. To say, I will not be complicit. Right. In any more damage and harm, wars, etc. My life capacity goes into, and then she's free, and she speaks to Jason, wherever you are in the netherworld, come back to the mother. I am the mother. Right. I am the dragon that protected the fleece. That's a whole nother kind of vein in the myth. Come back to life. So she's not getting revenge on Jason even. She's saying, come back to the source. Right. Yeah. So Joanna, working on this play, brought all that up in myself. And so I decided, as I was laying there like, I don't have a script. I finished the script. Then I had to memorize it as an actress, in 2 weeks. It's a whole different process. Right. And then perform it. And on the opening night, I felt the weight of that ocean on my back. I was flat out on my face. Yeah. I couldn't get up. I couldn't stand up. I was so terrified. I couldn't understand this. I still didn't know what it was. And so someone gave me some pain pills. I don't even take aspirin hardly ever. I took the pain pills. I was able to stand up, and I performed the show. I did 3 performances and then an extra one because people liked it so much. I did 4 nights. And what I learned was, at a really, really deep, that taboo of female sovereignty, for me to be sovereign, to me to be fully who I am, for me to fully give my gifts, for me to be fully creative, no matter what I lose on the sides. If it kills my mother, then she's gonna die. I wasn't cold about it, but it was like, how could I, understanding what I did about Medea and her complicity with the hero, if I were to cut myself back and not do that show, I would be complicit. Right. Right.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
how did your life change after that?
People were saying back in 1995, people were saying, "Oh, you look different. It looks like a fog got lifted off your head, or some kind of weight on your forehead is gone." And so people saw it visibly, and I had more like health and strength.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said in my chapter, I feel like I wrote in my journal, I feel like a day job won't suck the life out of me because I was trying to make it as an actress at the time, and you always have to have a day job and that kind of thing. And so it really strengthened me and freed up a lot of energy in my body. But I also want to say, you know, there's no silver bullet. There's no, okay, I did it now. I'm da 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 da. No, life goes on, and we continue layer after layer of peeling the onion of, whatever conditioning we have, and whatever our next level is to create. So, it wasn't like an end. It was like a beginning. It
Right.
was an initiation. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Because
that's
I don't want to create a false impression, that once you've done it, then you're done. No, we keep working through this in our lives, one layer after another, and it's worth it.
right.
It's so worth it. Yeah,
Yeah. So in
yeah.
this storyline, how do you think it's playing out now? What's happening now in the world?
I think we are at the the whole juggernaut, the nexus of the whole thing. Um, what's happening in the world now is that there's this global movement towards authoritarian governments.
Mm-hmm.
Authoritarian strongman is playing out in spades in the United States, we know, and it's global,
Right.
and so more than ever, women need to step into our female sovereignty
Mm-hmm.
and say no,
Right.
come back to life.
Yeah.
And if we have to lose a partner,
Mm-hmm.
lose a partner. If you lose family members, lose. I mean, we're down to the wire on this. Um, but ultimately, the motivation is love and life.
Mm-hmm.
And if we go that route, we will blossom
Right. Yeah.
and we'll have the deepest desires of our heart fulfilled. But we have to be willing to surrender and pay whatever price we think it's going to be,
Right.
you know, because the world needs it. The world needs women, and we are rising.
Yeah.
We are awakening. And I just want to say to our brothers, this is not about cutting men out. This is about us all working together again in a way that benefits everybody and the earth. That's why my Shakti Moon Foundation, I don't know if we had that in the bio or not, the nonprofit is dedicated to cultivating right relationship with source, which is earth and woman,
Mm-hmm.
and the great creatrix and source.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're really at a turning point.
I guess my biggest question just inside of my own being is how do you create sovereignty and embody love at the same time? Because I think a lot of people think, oh, well, if I'm going to be sovereign, I have to be angry and I have to fight and I have to like da da da, which seems very masculine to me. So like what does it look like when someone is sovereign and embodying love and embodying that wisdom and being out in the world? How do they do that without um being angry and fighting and like all of those things? You know what I mean? Because that's a
Yeah,
perception for a lot of people.
yeah, yeah. I think sovereignty means you follow the guidance within you,
Mm-hmm.
moment by moment.
Right.
So maybe you need to go out to a protest.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a protest isn't the right thing to do for you. Um, but I do think it means calling out corruption
Right.
at the right time, in the right way. I think a prime example of this is Marianne Williamson. If people want to, like,
Mm-hmm.
she's
Yeah.
brilliant in my book.
Yeah.
She's calling it out, and that's a woman who has embraced love. And Course in Miracles, she's been a teacher like that for many years. She ran for president twice,
Right.
and she's like said, it's like, wow, did I learn a lot? Like, how she got blackballed out and that sort of thing. Um, And what keeps her going is love, is that vision.
Mm-hmm.
But love can be very, very clean and clear. Your child starts crawling up onto the stove and is going to put their hand on a burner. You're going to grab them and pull them away. You're not going to say, oh honey, you say stop.
Right.
Yeah. Stop it right now.
Right.
You're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
So I think it's and I think anger, like a righteous rage,
Mm-hmm.
has its place in the right time.
Yeah.
But the thing is, a lot of times the people that are out there raging or whatever, they haven't resolved their own unresolved
Right.
hurt and pain. And so a lot of activists can be coming from that place of wanting to have a projectile for their own hurt and pain. Self-sovereignty means you're resolving it within yourself first. Yeah. And love can be very exacting. Mm-hmm. It takes no bullshit.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's a really good question, and I think it's a razor's edge that we walk.
Yeah. What does the new world look like when everything is in its place and we have balance? Yeah, what there's balance.
Wow.
Yeah, where there's male and female working together and there's balance. What does that world look like?
That's a great question, and I don't know. I have models from the past because I've studied matriarchal studies, and there have been many cultures like that, but we're in a new time. Right. And the first thing, there will be conflicts, but they will be worked out in an intelligent way through communication. But people would have the same value, which is we want to be in harmony with nature. Mm-hmm. And we want to okay, here's what came to my mind. Uh-huh. I did a guided meditation many years ago when someone asked, what would the future look like to you? And what I saw in my mind was everything was a culture where everything was built around water.
Yes.
In water is life. And in some way that we don't even understand now, I saw an image of like people standing around this huge fountain in the center of a city or a village, and somehow they communicated with each other through the water. Mm-hmm. I don't even know what that means, but water is a supreme example of generosity, of moving with, shaping itself to what's there, mm-hmm. and moving around obstacles, this sort of thing. But it's a really huge question. What will it look like? But I think part of what it'll look like is that it will be much more regional, mm-hmm. and more local, and yet at the same time have the global communication and connections, and sharing that way, sharing our genius with each other. But food will be produced more locally. Communities will be pulling together. I don't know. We got to work it out, don't we?
Yeah, that sounds amazing. The water thing. Remember that movie, The Green Beautiful, about did I not play you The Green Beautiful? That was one of my favorite movies. So it's in French, but it's subtitled, and it's people from another world that come here to just try and figure out like how humans are doing, but they all speak to each other also telepathically, but you have to put your feet in the water, and that gives you a better amplifier for your telepathic communication. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll send it to you because it's so good. It's
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So it's I feel like there's stories out there that do focus on what we could have. They're overshadowed by the dystopian stuff, and I feel like more of us have to like hold on to the vision of what do we want? What do we really want? Like, not fighting against what we don't want, but what can we create? Because we're such creators, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Because everything we think can be created here. So yeah, I'm looking for that vision still, that utopian vision of, yeah, let's be telepathic together and work together and grow our food and take care of our children and all of these things. I love it.
Well, yeah, and don't you think it starts right with how we're treating the people that are in our lives right now, you
Absolutely.
know? I mean, that's how it starts from the inside out.
Right.
Um, I forgot what I was going to say. Something like, something else along the lines. But yeah, I mean, it has to start. Oh, I feel like we are imaginal cells in
Hmm.
the cocoon, the goop. You know, we know that in the caterpillar goes into the cocoon and then he just turns into mush before he's a butterfly. And what makes it a butterfly is there's these imaginal cells, you know, kind of around it, and they hold the blueprint for the transformation of the new form of the butterfly. Excuse me, I'm getting. And so you and me and other people who are creating something new, you know, doing that creation of what's new instead of just fighting the old,
Hmm.
we are the imaginal cells. We're the visionaries,
Yeah.
and we have to live it in a very humble way. You know, like who's living next door to me, the person on the street, that sort of thing. What am I? How am I growing my own food? You know, how am I supplying? You know, all of this.
Mhm.
Um, you know, plus the grander visions that might be more in our mind right now, but we can't implement them yet.
Right.
We're the imaginal selves. So, and you know, we're not very visible in the world, are we? You know, not that visible to the world at large.
And well, I mean, it's just because of the static. There's so much distraction. Like, and the way I see it is there's so much distraction because whoever it is, whoever they is, they don't want us to know that we can create and that we're such powerful creators, but we are.
Yeah,
And if we could
yeah,
just focus, we could just focus, we could create this world. And so that's what it's about. It's about putting, even if we're not like have, millions of people that are seeing our message right now, and there could be in the future for sure. Um, each individual imaginal cell is doing their little best to
yeah.
create this new world. So I'm positive. I have optimism that all of our voices, all of these little cells are going to create this new world that's good for all of us, right?
I do too. I do too. I agree. I agree. And you know what? Things can turn on a dime like that. You know, it's good things. They build and build and build. They're invisible, and all of a sudden, the butterfly comes out of the cocoon. You
Ta-da.
know,
Right.
ta-da!
Uh-huh.
But yeah, yeah,
And we think, oh God, why can't it just happen tomorrow? But for some reason, the struggle is what it takes to get strong enough to be able to live in that world of the butterfly. And so as much as I am not a fan of the struggle, I guess we're struggling so that we can really appreciate this new life that we're creating, this new world together.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We're strengthening, getting strengthened. You know, I
Right?
guess. Right.
I'm strong
Yeah,
enough. Let's go for the good stuff.
yeah. Well, this is what you're doing. This is what you're doing with your podcast. You
Right?
know,
Yeah.
and personally, I just deluge myself with podcasts that have all these positive messages, you
Totally.
know, to keep myself on track. Because it's so easy to get, oh, I'm aware of what's going on. I have my little news sources that I use,
Yeah.
but uh, you know, I keep nourishing myself with this kind of conversation and vision. Yeah.
Yeah. And now you're one of the voices that are out there inspiring people
Yeah.
for the new planet.
Yeah.
So thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you for having me here. I want to say, unleashing the courageous feminine. You know, you can get it. You know, I want to talk the other stories. Some of the other stories in the book are very inspiring. So I think this is a really good book for people to inspire themselves. You know, in the midst of all this tumultuous times that we're in. So I'm going to put the plug in for the anthology. You know, and they can get it for 99 cents from March 27th to the 29th. Of course, this if you're seeing this podcast after that, you know, you got to pay full price. But you know, thank you, Joanna, for helping on this book launch, because we're trying to get this out there to make it a bestseller, so to
Oh,
reach more people, you know, with these
totally.
inspiring stories. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think your
So
words out in the world are going to make it happen for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're
Thank you.
going for it. Yeah.
Yay. Oh, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I appreciate you.
Yeah. It's great to be here. It's great to know you in person too. Joanna and I know each other in person, in the
Mhm.
flesh, as
Yeah.
well as on Zoom. Yeah.
I had the
Yeah.
honor of being at on the land, and it's so magical and so beautiful, and I feel so
Yeah.
blessed to have been there. Thank you so much for sharing your
Yeah.
land and your life and your love with me. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, well, you gave me so much while you were there. I really appreciate that. Yeah, that's how it works, That's how it works. We just love each other and give what we have when we're with each other. Yeah.
I love it. Yay. Well, thank you guys so much. And make sure to get this book. Let's read the Unleashing the Courageous
Um,
Feminine, 13 Stories of Strength,
yeah.
Grace, and Awakening Through Adversity on Amazon. Um, 27th through 29th. Get it for 99 cents, or, you know, the 31st. Support this
Yeah, there you go.
amazing
Yeah.
project.
And contact me at my website, vajrama.com with a hyphen, VAJRA hyphen MA.com. Lots of good stuff there.
So good. So good. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Thank you, Basha.